Hello everybody, Jacqueline here. Welcome to another Paint With Me. Recently, Ryan and I went to Crested Butte here in Colorado for a weekend, and we set up the tripod to record a scene, and I got to sit there and paint, but I also wanted to paint an itty bitty painting back here in the studio. So if you would like to surround yourself with your supply of choice, so it can be paints, colored pencils, watercolor, whatever you're feeling today. And let's get started on this beautiful painting. We did set up the tripod, like I said, and we recorded about 15 minutes or so. So we'll just kind of put that on a loop so we can kind of see that the clouds will roll in and the lighting will change a little bit. And that's kind of the wonderful thing about plein air painting, is dealing with what Mother Nature gets you. And I'm going to start by just doing a quick little sketch on my painting, or my little paper here. And per request on my last video, a few of you asked to have me zoom in a little bit more so you can see my painting. So we're going to try that out today. So let's go ahead and sketch. And then we're going to go ahead and get into painting. So I'm going to push down on these edges, not too hard, but just making sure it's not up at all to where sometimes the paint will seep underneath, but as best as you can, pushing down on those edges will help a bit. So I like to start with the sky. So I have my palette over here to the left. I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to add it to my light blue over here to get a nice little base to start my sky. And I'll leave some space a little bit for, I'm just going to go ahead and paint over that. I've been painting with watercolor so much lately, I use the white of the paper to help with the clouds. But with gouache, you actually don't have to do that, because you can just go back in with the white gouache and paint in your clouds. So we're just going to do a very thin layer of my sky here. I am using my favorite medium-ish size, 6 would be a medium size, of my Raphael precision brush. I know some people like round brushes, some like flat brushes or filbert brushes, but I'm a fan of the angled brush. And a bit more white. There we go. Kind of smooth that out just a little bit more. Perfect. So that's a nice base for the kind of cloudy gray-ish sky we had going on that day. Blue. I like to make kind of a more purpley blue mountain. That's just my preference when I make my mountain scenes. It works for me, so we're gonna go for it. And actually I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush, because that mountain there to the right has more snow on it. So I do want to make sure I kind of leave the paper. Again, I can add more snow, but I like to add more snow later. But I like to start with at least mapping it out. Clouds, I take a little bit more liberty of how I want to paint them, but the mountains, I try to kind of stick to more of what I see. Again, this is your painting, whatever you want. You can do lots of snow, you can do less snow. Dab a little bit of that color in there. I'm going to add a little bit of white to these ones back here, because the lighter they are, they'll seem like they're cascading to the background a bit more. That's a good start. Might even make this a little bit lighter. That works. Might come back if need be. So now I'm going to mix up some greens for the valley that was happening down below. So I'm putting 2 little spots of green. One I'll add my lighter, like mustard yellow. I should mention, with my gouache, I love using my Holbein gouache. Yeah, mustard is the yellow color. And then deep yellow will be the other, more warm toned yellow that I like to add to my greens. So you can mix your own greens if you want to do the blue and yellow. I find for these tiny paintings, using just my, what is it? Sap green. It works for me for these little paintings to more quickly get the green out on the palette. And then we're going to grab some white up here, add some of the green to it, and move that clump of white over. My white is down to its last bit in the tube, so it's a little bit more clumpy. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to my Raphael angled brush. The one I was using right before that is my Princeton Velvet Touch angular shader in the 1/8 size. We're going to go back to the Raphael one because I'm going to kind of do a sweeping motion with the paint colors. So I'll add a little bit of water. We're going to start, let's see here. We're going to start with a darker color because actually we're going to mix up a green with a little bit of that blue, because right below the mountains, while those are trees, the clouds that have come over have made it a little bit bluish green. So we're going to kind of sweep that right through there. Yeah, just so it's a little bit more densely forested. Now I'm going to clean my brush and do this green, put it in here. And a tip I have when you have like these valleys is to kind of put a base layer where it's kind of sweeping across in the motion that you want, and then you can add your details in on top of it afterwards. It just kind of helps your hand motion and the painting kind of start getting used to that. The trees are coming down the mountain hill and it's coming off the left side. So it's just kind of nice to start training your brush and your hand to kind of do that. Wonderful. And then I'm going to take this brighter, a little bit brighter yellow, yellowish green, kind of add it in little spots. Might need more yellow. Maybe a tinge of the white. Just kind of give it a little variance of spots. Beautiful. Now for this lake down below, it's kind of this bluish green. So I'm going to, since I already have the bluish green that I did for this part up here, I'm just going to add more green to it. And then I'm going to add white to like half of it. So I can kind of see the hue that it's starting to do. Add a little bit of blue to it, because there is the highlight, as you can see, where the trees are. But I want to at least get a base layer down with it. It's a pretty good mix. Washing this off And then we're going to go in with that smaller angular brush so we can kind of put this water in. So instead of just one base layer, I'm actually going to kind of try to shape out those trees that will be there. So first it's kind of darker right here on the edge. And there will be these like trees. Then I can dip into the lighter color. Well, it may not be as light as I thought. That's okay. It's a good start. I meant to leave a little space up here because there's a little cabin right there. So once this area dries, I'll probably need to go in and put that there. Kind of forgot to leave a spot open for that. That's okay. The nice thing about gouache, in my case, is that when it dries, you can layer on top of it, kind of like with acrylic paints. Now, if you were doing watercolor, I would highly, highly suggest making sure that you leave spots for the snow in the mountains and where you might want to put the clouds or where you might want to put the little cabin or something. So I would suggest that for sure. Now, if you've already painted it with watercolor right now, do not worry. You can use let me grab it, a jelly roll pen, like a gel pen, to be able to add in those highlights. You can also use white gouache paint if you wanted to add the highlights back in, if you needed to. Whenever I try to do my whites or highlights or tiny details, I try to have a clean cup of water so I'm not muddying it up too much, especially with white. So I'm just grabbing some more white paint and we are going to add some clouds in here. So to start, I'll have a little bit more watery on my palette. You can see that over there on the right side. A little bit more watery. And then sometimes the paint goes down on the ferrule, so I kind of like wipe it off with my finger. You don't want to, when you're putting in those little details, for water to come off that ferrule onto your bristles and then go everywhere, so just be careful about that. And we are going to add some clouds with a nice light touch. You may have to layer this a few times if you want it to be more prominent, bam, in your face type of clouds. I am just doing very light, a light touch. And it looks like the clouds were more long, and then there will be a little bit of a shadow underneath, so I'll add that in. Put some up off of this top part here. I don't even know if you can see that. Not only do I paint small, but sometimes it's white on a very light sky. My apologies about that. So I'm going to grab some of this blue, this darker blue, add more white to it so it kind of has a little tint. And I'm just going to pop that right underneath those clouds. And you can get fancier with your clouds, like add it amongst it, where like the curves have happened or something. But for this case, because I'm doing such a tiny painting, I don't want too much detail. Oops, and it looks like my bristles are kind of spreading apart, making it kind of weirdly two lines. It's okay, I'll take some more white, blend it in with it. Wonderful. That's a good little subtle clouds in the sky. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the trees. So we're going to use darker green. With a little bit of the blue to do the more far away in the distance ones. Now it looks like there's another lake back here, but I'm not going to paint that in, or any of the little houses. I don't think so. Way off in the distance. I keep this more of just a landscape. I'm just going to dab trees in. Not too much paint on the bottom there. I will be layering on top of this. Then I'm going to grab my little tiny brush, the 5/0 spotter brush. Add some more. Giving the illusion it's going up to the right as well. And way back here it's more like teeny tiny dots. I'm not even going to do any back there, that's so far in the distance. But if I can add a little bit of texture right up against these mountains, I'm going to. With the lighter green, we're going to come in here and start layering little trees in front of it. Cover up that bottom weird line that I had going on. Paint that edge. A little more. So now these trees right here along the lake are darker at the base. So I'm going to start building that up. I think I'm going to mix with my angular brush because I can just get more paint on the palette with that. Right in here. I'm going to kind of start building the base of those trees being darker. More like scribbles. Perfect. And then going in with the lighter green, roughly on top of those squiggles. Now off to the left here, it looks like it's still the beginning of summer, so it's not quite as green here on the hills, but I'm going to pretend that it's still very summer-like. And we are going to keep it brighter. There was some shade from the clouds. Some parts. Try to get right here on the edge. And then in the foreground there was little bits of grass happening, so I will do that towards the end, so I'm not really going to touch down here much anymore. We're going to go back into that water. At the beginning of the video it's more of a gradient, but then as it went on and how the clouds were forming, you could see like the little reflections of the trees. But now that I'm back at the beginning of it, I think I want to make it a little bit more of a gradient because I kind of messed up on that part, so we're just gonna fix it just a wee bit. That color over here. I already had the dark there, so I'm gonna put a little light there, like a lighter blue-green. Then we're gonna go in with just white, even though it'll be a little colorful because my brush. We're going to make this more of a gradient. So the trick with doing gradients is doing it all with gouache is doing it all while it's still wet. It does dry a little bit quicker, so I like to do it while it's still wet, so you kind of blend that gradient out a bit more. Sometimes you do a couple passes. Then I'll go back in with the dark on the top edge of that to kind of blend down. Wonderful. So now I'm going to kind of let this play for a few minutes. Well, a few minutes for me. It might be faster for you. And I'm just going to kind of clean up some of those trees, and then we'll come back with a tinier brush to add in all the little grasses at the front. So enjoy this nice little sped up moment of me cleaning up my trees, because this brush that I first started with, my angular shader, kind of blobbed some bits out like right over here, so I kind of want to clean it up. So I'm going to add little bits of grasses here in the front, so it feels like, you know, everything else is even farther back. I will mix my colors, making sure it has enough water on it, because they kind of started drying. These are acrylic gouaches, so it does dry, and then you can't really re-wet it, but in the sake of right now, you kind of can't re-wet it, but you can't come back like in a few hours. They will be very, very dry. Probably with this sage color. I like to add tiny little dots just to make it a little bit more magical. Maybe they're bugs, maybe they're flowers, maybe it's just pollen in the air. I'm just going to keep it right here, more so in the foreground. So there we have it, this beautiful painting. I'm going to peel off the tape and then show you the final one. Oh, it's so cute. So here's my final painting. I think it turned out beautifully. I love the tiny little grasses, the little cabin. I liked that I made the lake more of a gradient. I think because I was painting so small, I didn't want it to get too busy, and I knew I wanted to add the grass, so I feel like it would have combated it, but there is the final painting. And if you guys have your paintings, your drawings, your sketches or whatnot, please tell me about it. Send it to me. You can DM me on Instagram. You can write me here in the comments. I'd love to know how your painting turned out. And yeah, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up or even a subscribe if you'd like to. And I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.